The concept of convenience store was not born in Korea, but ever since it became popularized in the early 90s, convenience stores have become a firm part of modern lifestyle in Korea. It's not uncommon you find a number of convenience stores in a single block, together with takeout coffee bars and fried chicken restaurants. As I mentioned in the episode about the nightlife in Korea, Koreans work and play hard and into late nights, and for them, convenience stores that open 24/7 and even on national holidays are literally so convenient. They not only offer various options for quick and easy prepared meals and snacks, but also basic facilities such as microwave, water boiler, and a bar table that allow you to eat them on the spot. Adapting to busier and busier lifestyle today and utilizing their extensive presence and 24/7 open nature, some of them even offer parcel drop and pickup service as well as basic banking services today. But as convenient as it is, a convenience store has to be manned at all times, including late nights. Inherent vulnerability to potential crime aside, those night shifts are often tiring, boring hours for the staff, and sometimes spooky too. I guess it's no surprise that 24/7 convenience stores sometimes become a backdrop for new ghost stories from modern Korea. Today I collected the stories of inexplicable phenomenon some convenience store staffs experienced during their night shift. Some could have been hallucination induced by tiredness and boredom, but some are a bit more complex just to be a mere hallucination. So, here are 5 allegedly true stories from Korea of what happened in convenience stores at night. As always, handpicked, translated and narrated by your host, Anthony. A friend got a part-time job at a convenience store. At first, he was promised to get day and night shift in turn, but him being the only male staff, soon he was given exclusively the nighttime shift. He didn't complain because he knew well enough that the night shift was actually much easier, save for normal sleeping pattern interrupted. Past 1 or 2 in the morning, there were usually just occasional customers coming in to buy some drinks or packet of cigarette, and he could even doze off a bit in between till the dawn broke. This convenience store had, as usually the case, full floor-length glass facade. Outside was just a motorway and an empty field past that. The view at night was just a void of pitch dark, and my friend consciously avoided looking outside because the darkness creeped him a bit. One night he was dozing away at the counter as usual. He suddenly felt a flush of cold air on his face as if from an open fridge door and woke up with a startle.
"Excuse me." "Huh?"
His initial thought was a customer was playing a prank on him by putting a cold drink or an ice cream up to his face, and so he excused himself, but there was nobody in the shop. Perhaps a customer just left, finding him asleep. Maybe it was just a gust of fresh air from the door. He looked outside if he could see somebody walking away, and found something across the road against the backdrop of pitch dark. It was a girl, wearing what looked like a school uniform. He turned his eyes instinctively away, but the angle was such she was still visible at the corner of his vision. What was she doing there at this time of the night? Some delinquent high school girl looking to buy a cigarette? But even from that quick one look, he sensed she wasn't just any old teenage girl. The season was getting chilly, but her shirt was short-sleeved, her complexion was too pale, and her long hair was all over the place. And above all, she was just standing there immobile, seemingly just staring at the convenience store. Then out of nowhere, my friend was startled by some humming, kind of melody that would have been used as a background music in a commercial, gentle and low. My friend wanted to find out where the sound was coming from, but at the same time he didn't want to lose the sight of the mystery girl outside. He desperately rolled his eyes about and found his phone blinging under the counter. It must have been its bell ringing. Huffing to himself, he quickly checked it. No number. Who could be calling so late at night?
Hello?
He answered. But the line was off the next second.
Shit, who the heck was that?
He grumbled and put the phone down. Pretending to still look ahead, he quickly stole a side look at where the girl stood. She wasn't there. He sighed of relief, checked the time on his phone, 3:30 in the morning that was, and stretched his arms. Next moment, he was running out of the store, screaming like a madman. He ran all the way to the neighboring convenience store and stayed there till the part-timer for the morning shift arrived. What made him run was, as he stretched his arms, the same humming melody was heard, and this time it wasn't from his phone that was still in his hand. His head instinctively turned to where the sound was coming from, and a convex mirror on the corner of the ceiling came to his sight. There, in the reflection, the same strange girl was standing by the shelf looking back at the mirror and humming the tune. I work part-time at a convenience store. When I arrived there this morning for my shift, I found an unfamiliar guy was finishing the night shift. Apparently he was filling in because the previous guy who'd been doing the night shift quitted on short notice. I knew those on the night shift in this store often do not last long, and the guy who filled in the night shift enlightened me why that might be. Last year he himself was on the regular night shift. At the back room of the store is a small office space with a screen for the surveillance cameras and a computer. That night he was killing time on the computer in the back room, and then noticed on the camera screen that a man was wondering about the snack shelf. But he didn't hear the bell of the door. He went out to the store, but there wasn't anybody. He came back to the office and checked the screen. And the guy was still there, up and down the snack shelf. That's not human, he thought. But then the guy started moving towards the counter and then into the office. The part-timer guy could not move and could not even breathe. In that small space of the backroom office, he didn't see anything, but could not shake off the sense of a presence right behind him. He was a churchgoer, so he just recited the Lord's Prayer in his mind, until a customer came into the shop. He called out for the staff, but since the part-timer guy was still frozen stuck in the office, the customer just walked out again. And on the camera screen, he saw the ghost following the customer out. Just a moment later, the screeching noise of a car stopping short was heard from the outside. There was a crosswalk just outside the store, and the customer who walked out of the shop was hit by a car while crossing the road. The part-timer called the emergency and the man was taken away, but how serious he was injured or indeed survived or not, he didn't hear. Apparently that wasn't the only odd thing happened in the store, according to him, especially during night shifts. And so hardly anybody would stay on the night shift longer than a few weeks. Last year, I failed to enter the university I was aiming for. After a few months of depression, I decided to shake myself up and found myself a part-time job at a convenience store. It was for the night shift, and because the store was on the street full of bars and clubs, at first I was a bit worried, being a girl. Fortunately, there rarely were drunken nuisance customers, and the majority of clients were people working in the bars and clubs. They sympathized with me being a fellow late-night worker and sometimes bought me some snacks or a coffee, and once even helped me to kick out a particularly obnoxious drunken customer. Everything seemed to turn out better than I expected, but I left the job not quite 2 months later. For each location, the majority of the sale at night were alcoholic drinks, so much so I had to fill up the shelf every few hours. That night too, about 2 in the morning, I went to the storage to pull out bottles to fill up the empty shelf. Now, during the first few days on the job, some kids stole stuffs and ran away while I was busy in the storage, so I made it a habit to regularly check on the surveillance camera screen while restocking. Everything was fine that night till I finished restocking. As I closed the storage door, I saw on the screen a customer walking in. I quickly walked out to the store saying, "Good evening." There was nobody. But I definitely saw a person, or to be precise, the back of the person's head entering the store. Maybe he was a thief and just ran away hearing me coming. Whatever the case, it left me a weird feeling. A few days later, I was in the office to check on the stock list and saw on the camera screen that somebody was in the store. Again, I walked out to the counter saying, "Good evening." And again, I was met with empty store. Come to think of it, the bell on the door didn't ring at all. With a strange feeling in my gut, I went back to the office and checked the camera screen. And there was a dark, shadowy figure roaming about the store. I came out to check again, but the store was still empty. My hair stood on end, and I could not decide what to think of it all. I hid myself in the office and didn't take my eyes off from the camera screen until the newspaper delivery arrived. Hoping to keep the delivery man as a company just a few minutes longer, I offered him a warm drink, but, well, he said he couldn't possibly delay and left promptly. In the end, I stood outside of the store for the rest of my shift that night. Only with the morning light I could gather enough courage to check back the camera screen, and there wasn't a shadow figure anymore. I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination. I was too tired that night and saw what wasn't there. But when the dark figure reappeared on the screen the following day, I could not deny its presence anymore. I stayed on the job, arguing to myself that it was okay as long as that thing didn't do anything to me. But one night, when some of the products fell from the shelf by themselves, reasonable or not, I could not take it anymore. I couldn't explain what I saw to my boss, for he wouldn't have believed me anyway. I just made up an excuse that it was too scary as a girl to do the night shift, and quitted the job. Shortly after the SAT, I got a part-time to work on the night shift at a convenience store. Into the 4th day, I seemed to have learned all I needed to know and felt confident enough to stand on the job by myself. It was my very first part-time job work, so still fresh and full of willingness, I greeted brightly when a young woman came in at around 2 in the morning. And she took her time for a good 10 minutes looking around the shelves. I just thought she must be one indecisive person and shifted my focus to the computer on the counter. My boss allowed me to use internet to kill the boring night shift time so long I kept it moderate. I think I read one post and looked up to check on the customer and found she was gone. Even though I was looking at the computer, it was almost impossible to miss somebody going in and out of the store when I kept standing at the counter. Maybe she was crouching down to check stuff on the bottom shelf? I physically checked around every aisle too, but there was nobody. It was a snowy night, falling snowflakes obscuring the street lamp outside. It suddenly felt all very bleak and eerie. I thought to go back to the internet and check out some funny posts to lighten my mood, and turned around. The woman was right in front of me. Suppressing my startle, I said, "Haven't you found what you wanted yet?" as nonchalantly as possible. The woman silently shook her head. What are you looking? Shall I help you?" I said. But the woman didn't say anything and walked out of the store. That was a one weird customer, I thought. Fortunately, nothing more happened that night. Following day, I started my shift at 10 p.m. as usual. Snow was falling again, and I put on a small electric heater under the counter to fend off the chill. And the woman from the previous night came again, wearing exactly the same attire. She wandered up and down the aisle as the night before, and this time I watched on not to miss her move. I didn't notice anything particularly odd. After a few minutes, I convinced myself that it was my paranoia and was about to turn to internet again, when it suddenly hit me. It was snowing a lot outside, and the woman wasn't even carrying an umbrella, and I didn't see a single snowflake on her hair or her shoulder. I didn't take my eyes off her from the moment I recognized her walking in, and she didn't even shake off snow off. I do believe in ghosts, as I had brushed with some presence in my childhood, but it was the first time that I faced one so directly, and I finally understood why people get terrified with ghosts. I just turned my eyes away, desperately hoping that she'd just go away as she did the night before. About 5 minutes in, that felt like forever, I looked around the store. And she wasn't there. Phew, she's gone, I thought, and was just walking out of the counter. The lights went out in the entire store. I panicked and fumbled through the underneath the counter to look for a torchlight, but my hands were shaking too much. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, steadied my hand, and finally grabbed the torch. When I turned it on, right in the spotlight was the woman looking at me. "What are you? What do you want?" I think I screamed. Without a word, she tried to come around the counter. Guess the desperation made me brave, and I blocked her way. She, in turn, grabbed my face and pushed her eyes right up to mine. I fought to get myself free, but her grip was so tight. I closed my eyes, not looking into hers. But she now used her fingers to forcefully pop open my one eye. And the moment I met her eyes, I fainted. I woke up in a hospital. My boss came in the morning and found me passed out behind the counter with the foams from my mouth and one eye opened. After calling the emergency, he checked the record from the surveillance camera for the case of robbery. All he saw was me suddenly getting agitated, then checking through the things under the counter, taking out the torch, and passing out in the end. I explained what I saw and experienced, but the boss didn't believe me. I wanted to quit the job right then and there, but the boss insisted that I should do my job at least until he find another part-timer. If I should really feel so scared, for whatever reason, he would stay there with me over the night. As scared as I was, I could not say no. Indeed, the boss stayed with me, though he slept in the backroom office most of the time, and fortunately the scary woman didn't return. In the morning, I checked on the record of the surveillance camera from the terrifying night. It was as my boss described, but there was one little detail he missed. Before I passed out, there was a faint mark of a hand grabbing my terrified face. I didn't want to argue with the boss, so didn't tell him anything. I just quitted as soon as he found another staff, just 10 days into the job. It's a story my roommate told me. His older brother, let's call him Chinsu here for the sake of the story, worked part-time at a convenience store long time ago. The store was in the notorious area with a high petty crime rate, and the street got very quiet just past 6 in the evening already. Several weeks into the job, he got to learn the store itself was once a stage of a terrible crime. A female part-timer kept the store on the night shift when a robber broke in past 1 in the morning. He tied her up, took all the cash and scratch tickets, but the drunken robber didn't finish there. He proceeded to molest the helpless staff, but was stopped short by people passing by. He realized now he was guilty of not just simple theft, but also sexual assault, and to seal her mouth shut, decided to kill her. He stabbed the poor woman's abdomen multiple times. When she didn't die with them, he also slashed her throat, which finally ended her. The robber, who was running out of the shop with blood stains all over, ran into the police officers who were patrolling the area and was caught. In the aftermath, the store changed hands and name, but the new owner didn't even bother to change the old interior and continued the business as a convenience store. And now Chinsu was working there on the night shift. One night, just passing 1 o'clock, he found some chewing gum left stuck on the floor of the store and was scratching it off. And saw a faint reflection on the glazed floor tile, which looked like a human head with its long hair down. It swayed too, not like a pendulum or a balloon, but most bizarre way. Chinsu didn't dare to look up and carried on scratching the chewing gum, pretending not to have noticed anything. But the head kept following as he moved, and when he caught a glimpse of it approaching straight across the shelf, he fainted. When he got around, he found himself waking up at the counter. He must have dozed off and had that creepy dream. Could it be that the story of the murdered part-timer seeped into his dream? But there was a customer in the shop, and Chinsu shook himself up. But the customer, walking up to him, gesturing as if asking something, didn't have head. Chinsu passed out again. When he got around, this time he found himself on the floor with a knife with which he'd been scratching chewing gum, still clutched in his hand. Hi, it's Anthony here, and thank you very much for listening. Hope you enjoyed today's stories. I currently live in Europe, and one thing I had to struggle here was shops closing early in the evening and don't even open at all on Sundays. Having come from Korea, where so many things are available on 24/7 basis, it was a huge inconvenience for me. But by now I understand better that my convenience often means somebody else's hard work. Paranormal aspect aside, today's stories do attest it's not an easy task to keep a shop all alone all night long. Picking up the theme of the job that requires to work through the night, I'm going to read stories from night security guards next week. So stay tuned. If you enjoyed my video, please leave it a comment and a like, and please consider subscribing to my channel. If you'd support me more directly, I also have a Buy Me a Coffee account. The link's in the description. In whichever way, your support and love encourage me to go on. Thank you. I'll come back next Sunday. Stay safe and take care.